"Get those goddamn birds off my property," Dave screamed, swaying in my doorway at 7 a.m., reeking of whiskey from the night before. I stared at him in shock, my coffee mug suspended halfway to my lips. Behind me, through my kitchen window, the morning sun illuminated the wreckage of my once beautiful chicken coop, splintered wood, scattered feed, and feathers everywhere. One of my hens limped across the yard, her wing bent at an unnatural angle. "What are you talking about?" "They're in my yard," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "And what happened to my coop?" Dave's bloodshot eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what happened." He jabbed a finger toward my new pool, gleaming turquoise in the morning light. "First that monstrosity, now your chickens wandering everywhere. This since today. My security camera had caught everything." Dave stumbling into my yard at 2 a.m. with a shovel, methodically destroying the coop I'd built with my own hands while my chickens scattered in terror. All because of a swimming pool and a grudge I never knew existed until now. As Dave lurched back toward his house, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister Claire. "You okay? Just saw your Ring notification. Calling the police yet?" I gripped my phone tightly, watching Dave's retreating back. 3 years of building my little sanctuary, destroyed in one drunken night. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Growing up, I was always the responsible one in my family. While my younger brother Tyler charmed everyone with his wild stories and devil-may-care attitude, I was the kid who saved his allowance, finished homework early, and never missed curfew. Tyler got all the attention with his charismatic personality, while I built a reputation for reliability. That pattern continued into adulthood. After college, Tyler bounced between jobs and relationships, living the exciting life, while I put down roots. I bought this modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet Portland neighborhood with a decent-sized backyard. Nothing fancy, but it was mine, and I'd spent the last 3 years transforming it into a home. The backyard was my pride and joy. I'd installed raised garden beds that produced enough vegetables to share with neighbors. I'd built a fire pit for summer gatherings. And most importantly, I'd constructed a small but well-designed chicken coop that housed 5 happy hens, providing me with fresh eggs and the kind of quiet companionship I enjoyed. When Dave and his wife Lisa moved in next door 2 years ago, we had a cordial relationship. He was quiet, kept to himself, but would nod hello over the fence. I even helped him move a heavy table into his dining room once. Lisa was friendlier, often complimenting my garden and occasionally accepting fresh eggs or vegetables. Everything changed 3 months ago when I installed a small above-ground pool. Nothing extravagant, just a 15-foot round pool that took up a corner of my yard. The perfect place to cool off after gardening or relax with a beer on hot summer evenings. The day after installation, Dave was at my door, complaining about potential mosquitoes. I explained that chlorinated water doesn't attract mosquitoes, but he just glared at me before stalking away. Then came complaints about noise, even though I rarely had more than one friend over at a time. Then concerns about water runoff, despite my careful drainage planning. I couldn't figure out what had triggered this sudden hostility, until my friend Mike mentioned it casually over beers one night. "You know Dave's wife Lisa? We had a thing for a while," he said, examining his beer bottle like it was suddenly fascinating. "It ended badly." "You what?" I nearly choked on my drink. "Yeah, we met at that New Year's party you invited me to. Started texting after. Look, it was a mistake, and I ended it months ago." "Does Dave know?" Mike winced. "He found out. Right before you put in your pool, actually. He saw me dropping her off and confronted her. I guess she told him everything. And suddenly it all made sense. Dave didn't hate my pool, he hated me by association. I was friends with the man who had an affair with his wife, therefore I was the enemy. The pool was just a convenient excuse. I'd always been the one covering for Tyler's mistakes growing up. When he broke a neighbor's window, I helped pay for it. When he crashed Dad's car, I said we'd been racing, sharing the blame. Even now, I occasionally sent him money when he was between jobs. Being the responsible one meant carrying others' burdens. But this time, I'd done nothing wrong. This was Mike's mess, not mine, yet I was paying the price. For weeks, I tried to defuse the situation. I invited Dave and Lisa over for a barbecue. They declined. I kept my pool used to daylight hours to minimize noise. I even built a decorative trellis to partially block the pool from their view. Nothing helped. Then came that fateful night. I'd been away at my sister Claire's house for dinner. When I came home and checked my phone, I had multiple Ring camera alerts. The footage showed Dave, clearly intoxicated, entering my yard just after midnight. In his hands was a garden shovel. For 20 brutal minutes, he systematically destroyed the chicken coop I'd spent weeks building. He ripped apart the hardware cloth, knocked down the nesting boxes, scattered feed everywhere. My chickens, Henrietta, Mabel, Olive, Pepper, and Ruby, fled in panic. Dave cornered Ruby, and I still can't describe what he did with the shovel. The audio picked up his drunken muttering about teaching Alex a lesson and something about loyalty. I spent that night searching my yard with a flashlight, finding 4 terrified chickens hiding in bushes and under my deck. Ruby was missing. Henrietta had a broken wing. I carefully gathered them into a plastic storage bin in my garage for the night, hands shaking with a mix of fury and heartbreak. The next morning, after my confrontation with Dave, I called the police. Officer Ramirez arrived within the hour, her face serious as I showed her the video footage. Trespassing, property destruction, and animal cruelty, she said, taking notes. And you have clear video evidence. We'll need a copy of that. When she knocked on Dave's door, I watched from my porch. He first tried to deny everything, claiming he'd been home all night. When Officer Ramirez mentioned video evidence, he fell silent. I want to press charges, I told her firmly, and I want a restraining order. Claire arrived as the police car pulled away, Dave in the back seat. She hugged me tightly. How are the girls? She asked, meaning my chickens. Traumatized. Henrietta needs a vet for her wing. Still no sign of Ruby. What possessed him to do something so cruel? I explained about Mike's affair with Lisa. Claire's expression hardened. So he punished innocent animals because his wife cheated? That's twisted. It gets worse, I said, showing her my phone. Look at these texts from the neighbors. Since the incident, my phone had been buzzing with messages. Not all supportive. From Karen next door. Those chickens are so noisy in the mornings. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. From Ron across the street. Between your pool parties and chicken farm, this neighborhood is going downhill. From unknown number. Dave's a good guy who made one mistake. Stop making his life worse. Claire scrolled through them, her expression darkening. These people are taking his side? After what he did? I think he's been talking to neighbors for weeks, complaining about me. This didn't happen in a vacuum. She squeezed my shoulder. What's your plan? I looked at my destroyed coop, the scattered feathers in the morning breeze. First, I'm rebuilding, stronger this time. Then I'm fighting back. Not just against Dave, but anyone who thinks this was justified. While Claire helped me gather materials to construct a temporary shelter for my remaining hens, I received a call from the vet. I'd taken Henrietta in that morning before the police arrived. Your hen's wing will heal, but she'll likely never fly properly again. Even short distances might be difficult. After hanging up, I found myself sitting on my deck steps, staring at the pool that had somehow triggered this nightmare. For a moment, I considered filling it in, letting Dave win. It would certainly be easier. Don't you dare, Claire said, reading my thoughts. He doesn't get to win. I nodded slowly. You're right, but I need to be smart about this. That night, after Claire left, I installed additional security cameras covering every angle of my property. I ordered motion-activated lights and an alarm system. I researched local ordinances about backyard chickens, confirming that my setup was fully legal in our neighborhood. I printed copies of these regulations and placed them in a folder. The next day, Dave returned home. He avoided looking toward my yard as he hurried inside. Minutes later, Lisa arrived separately. They were arguing loudly enough that I could hear fragments through open windows. Completely unhinged, her voice carried. Arrested over chickens. Deserved it. Embarrassed me. His voice responded. I worked methodically in my yard, clearing debris and starting construction on a new, fortified coop. I could feel neighbors watching from behind curtains and over fences. Let them watch. Let them see me rebuilding what Dave had destroyed. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. This is Lisa from next door. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. There's nothing to talk about. Her reply came quickly. Please. Dave's not himself lately. We can work this out without courts. The old Alex might have agreed, might have sought compromise. But the Alex who had watched his chickens terrorized and injured was done being the peacemaker. Tell that to my missing hen and the one with a broken wing. I texted back. The court date is set. I blocked her number and continued working on the new coop until well after dark. Over the next week, the neighborhood seemed to split into factions. Some neighbors, mostly those with kids who'd enjoyed visiting my chickens, brought over food, offered help rebuilding, or just stopped by to express support. Others made their allegiance to Dave clear through cold shoulders and whispered comments when I walked by. On Thursday, I received a certified letter from a lawyer representing Dave. It claimed my pool had been installed without proper permits and demanded its removal. I smiled as I read it. I had meticulously obtained every required permit. They were trying to distract from the real issue. Friday morning, I was placing fresh straw in the new, partially completed coop when a familiar figure appeared at my gate. "Mike." "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Heard what happened." I straightened, brushing straw from my hands. "Yeah? And look, I feel responsible. If I hadn't gotten involved with Lisa, you should feel responsible." I cut him off. "You slept with a married woman, then vanished when things got messy. Now my animals are paying the price." He looked down. "I want to help. Unless you're here to testify about your affair with Lisa and how Dave blamed me for it, I don't need your help." Mike shuffled his feet. "I can't get involved like that. Lisa's finally ending things with Dave. If this becomes public, get off my property," I said quietly. My chickens didn't get the luxury of choosing not to be involved. After he left, I felt a strange sense of liberation. Growing up, I'd always been the mediator, the one who maintained peace at any cost, the responsible brother who cleaned up everyone's messes. For once, I was choosing justice over harmony. Saturday morning, Claire returned with a surprise, a chicken carrier containing 2 young hens. "To help rebuild your flock," she explained. "The brown one's from my friend's farm. The speckled one is Ruby." "Ruby?" I peered into the carrier, recognizing my missing hen. "Where did you find her?" 3 blocks over. Mrs. Patterson found her hiding under her porch and posted on Nextdoor. I've been checking lost pet posts all week. I carefully introduced Ruby to her old flock mates, watching as they recognized each other. Something tight in my chest loosened slightly. That afternoon, a neighborhood kid knocked on my door. Timmy, about 10 years old, from a few houses down. "Mr. Alex? I heard about your chickens. Is it true Mr. Dave hurt them?" I hesitated, unsure how to respond to a child about this situation. "There was an incident." "Yes." Timmy nodded solemnly. "Dad says Mr. Dave was just stressed because of grown-up problems, but Mom says what he did was wrong no matter what." "What do you think, Timmy?" "He considered this. I think hurting animals is always wrong. And..." He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "I saw Mr. Dave yelling at your chickens before. Last month. He was throwing rocks at your fence when they came near it." My blood ran cold. "Did you tell your parents?" "Yeah, but Dad said Mr. Dave was probably just shooing them away." I thanked Timmy for the information, gave him a popsicle from my freezer, and immediately called my lawyer to relay this new piece of information. This wasn't a one-time drunken mistake. Dave had been escalating for weeks. That evening, I attended the monthly neighborhood association meeting at the community center. I hadn't planned to go, but Claire insisted. "If Dave's been poisoning the neighborhood against you, you need to counter that narrative," she argued. I walked into the meeting room to find it unusually full. Conversation stopped as I entered. Lisa was there, sitting alone in a corner. Dave was noticeably absent. The association president, Barbara, cleared her throat. "Let's begin with new business. I understand there's been some conflict between neighbors recently." Several people glanced my way. "I'd like to address that," I said, standing. "Since there seems to be confusion about what happened." "Alex, perhaps this isn't the appropriate forum," Barbara began. "Actually, it is," I interrupted, pulling out my tablet. "Since this affects the whole neighborhood." I played the security footage of Dave destroying my coop. The room fell silent except for a few gasps as they watched him attacking my chickens. When it ended, I looked around the room. My chickens are legal under City Ordinance 7.12. My pool has all required permits. I've broken no rules, yet my property was vandalized and my animals were harmed. One is permanently injured. I'm pressing charges, and I wanted everyone to know exactly why. Lisa stood up abruptly and left the room, face flushed. Karen, who had texted me that the chickens were noisy, wouldn't meet my eyes. Ron from across the street spoke up. "Dave told us your chickens were loose in his yard all the time, that you refused to contain them." "That's a lie," I replied calmly. "They've never left my fenced yard. And even if they had, would that justify this?" I gestured to the tablet. The meeting continued, but something had shifted. By the end, several neighbors offered to help finish my new coop. Barbara promised the association would send a formal letter condemning Dave's actions. As I walked home with Claire, she bumped my shoulder. "Proud of you, little brother. Tyler always got away with everything because he was charming. You're finally standing up for yourself." "I'm not doing it for me," I replied. "I'm doing it for Henrietta and her broken wing." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. For the first time in my life, I wasn't taking the peaceful path, wasn't being the responsible one who smoothed things over. And it felt surprisingly right. A week later, I received a letter from Dave's lawyer offering a settlement. They would pay for the damages, veterinary bills, and emotional distress if I dropped the criminal charges. I declined without hesitation. 2 days after that, Lisa knocked on my door. She looked tired, her usually perfect makeup subdued. "Can we talk? Please." I stepped onto my porch but didn't invite her in. "About. Dave's facing serious charges. Animal cruelty is a felony. It could ruin his life. He should have thought of that before attacking innocent animals." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Look, I know what happened was wrong, but Dave's been going through hell. Finding out about, the affair you had with my friend? The one I had nothing to do with?" She flinched. "Yes, that. Dave somehow got it into his head that you knew. That you were helping Mike and me meet up. Which I wasn't. I know that now. I've told him that. He feels terrible about what he did." I laughed, a short, harsh sound. "Does he? Because he hasn't said that to me. No apology, no admission. Just legal threats about my pool and whisper campaigns about my chickens. He's prideful and embarrassed. The whole neighborhood knows now." "Good." Lisa stepped closer. "What if he wrote you a formal apology? Paid for everything? Agreed to community service? Would you consider dropping the charges then?" I looked past her to my backyard, where my 4 remaining hens scratched contentedly in their new, fortress-like enclosure. Henrietta's wing was healing, though it drooped noticeably. "I need to think about it," I said finally. After she left, I called Claire. "Dave wants to settle. Formal apology, payment for damages, community service. What are you thinking?" I hesitated. Part of me wants to see him face maximum consequences. Another part is tired of the conflict and wants peace in the neighborhood again, she finished. "Am I being weak if I accept?" "No," she said firmly. "You'd be making a choice on your terms. That's strength." I mulled it over for days. Then, on Saturday morning, something unexpected happened. I found a small package on my doorstep. Inside was a hand-carved wooden chicken, beautifully detailed, with a note. "I heard about your chickens. People shouldn't hurt animals. My grandpa helped me make this." Timmy, that small act of kindness from a neighborhood child, clarified things for me. This wasn't just about Dave and me anymore. It was about community standards, about what we collectively decided was acceptable behavior. I called my lawyer. "I'll accept the settlement with additional conditions." The Neighborhood Association's annual summer picnic fell on a perfect August day, 3 months after the incident. My backyard, complete with the pool that had started everything, was hosting this year. Barbara had suggested it as a healing gesture for the community. My new and improved chicken coop stood as a fortress in one corner, surrounded by flowering bushes. The hens, now 6 in total after 2 new additions, roamed their spacious run. Children took turns feeding them treats under my supervision. Dave was not in attendance. Part of our agreement was that he would stay away from my property in any event I attended for the next 2 years. He had also completed 40 hours of community service at the animal shelter, made a substantial donation to an animal welfare organization, and undergone court-mandated anger management counseling. Lisa had moved out temporarily but was reportedly considering reconciliation now that Dave had completed his counseling program. Mike had transferred to his company's Seattle office, removing himself from the equation. "Quite a turnaround," Claire commented, watching neighbors chatting happily around my pool. "Remember when half of them were taking Dave's side? Amazing what irrefutable video evidence can do," I replied dryly. "No, it wasn't just that," she said. "It was you standing your ground, not backing down like you usually do." I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just did what was right. For once, you put yourself first instead of keeping the peace for everyone else. Like with Tyler growing up, you were always covering for him, taking blame." "Speaking of Tyler," I said, changing the subject, "he called yesterday. Needs money again." Claire raised an eyebrow. "And?" I told him I'd help him find a job instead. No more handouts. She clinked her lemonade glass against mine. "Growth. I love it." As the afternoon wore on, Timmy came by to check on the chickens. I showed him how Henrietta's wing was healing, though it would never be perfect. She's still a good chicken, though, he said wisely, even with a broken wing. Yes, she is, I agreed. Sometimes the things that hurt us make us stronger if we heal the right way. Barbara called everyone together for the association announcements. After covering the usual business, she turned to me. And finally, we'd like to formally recognize Alex for hosting today, and for working with the association to develop our new community standards regarding conflict resolution and animal welfare in the neighborhood. The incident earlier this summer was unfortunate, but it led to important conversations about how we treat each other and our responsibilities as neighbors. There was enthusiastic applause, even from people who had initially sided with Dave. After the meeting dispersed, Karen, who had complained about my chickens being noisy, approached sheepishly. My kids were wondering if they could come by sometime to see the chickens up close. They've been begging since seeing them today. Of course, I said. They're good with children. As the sun began to set and neighbors helped clean up, I found myself alone by the pool that had somehow triggered this whole saga. Its surface reflected the golden evening light, peaceful and ordinary. Claire joined me, passing over a fresh lemonade. Penny, for your thoughts? Just thinking about consequences, I said. How something as simple as installing a pool led to all of this. The pool was just an excuse, she reminded me. Dave was looking for a reason to lash out because he was hurting. Doesn't justify what he did, but explains it. I nodded. For years, I've tried to avoid conflict, be the responsible one, make peace. Sometimes that meant letting things slide that shouldn't have. And now, I looked around at my home, the garden flourishing, the chicken coop rebuilt stronger than before, the pool sparkling in the evening light. All of it protected, not just by security cameras and legal agreements, but by my newfound willingness to stand my ground. Now I understand that some battles are worth fighting, even if they're over chickens and a swimming pool. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.